All layers have options. The layers panel has options. The layer panel options, like any panel in any Adobe product, are accessed by clicking the button in the upper right-hand corner right there. Lots of cool stuff. For example, you want to make a new layer, you can click that button, or you can click this one right down here. A sublayer. Let's look at this. Okay, each one of those represents one of the flowers as a group. So you have the ability, in a sense, to control the visibility and the locking of items within a layer without controlling the whole thing. A sublayer is basically one of these. You can create them from scratch. Let's go ahead and close that out. Come back up here. We can duplicate that layer, and you can do that by dragging it down on top of the new icon, or we can delete it, and of course you can do that by dragging it on top of the trash can. Our options we looked at in the previous segment. We're not going to do one of these yet, but we do have the ability to do something called a clipping mask. This item is interesting. Watch my flowers when I turn that on. Actually, let's do this. Let's go back again and turn that one back on. We want to see everything. That's better. Say, okay, what happened? In fact, I've seen that happen a couple of times, Andy. How did it happen? Because I didn't do it that way. You are in what is called isolation mode. Isolation mode is a feature in Adobe Illustrator that will isolate everything for you except what you want to work on in that layer. You can still see it as a dimmed 50% image. You got total control. Isolation mode. To get out of it, you can click up here and say exit isolation mode. But there's another way you can get into this, and this might be the way you have, is by double clicking on something. If I double click on this flower, I just entered isolation mode on that flower. Again, it assumes I want to work on the flower yet still see everything else. You say, well, how do you get out of this? I've done it, but I don't remember how. Press the escape key. That's one way. Watch up here, though, near the top. There's nothing there yet. If I double click on something again, I'm in isolation mode. Breadcrumbs are telling me where I am. This button right here, if you click it, will take you out of isolation mode. And you say, Andy, I double click a lot and I'm getting this isolation mode. I really don't use it. I don't want it. I want to turn it off. No problem. Go up to the word Illustrator Preferences if you're using a Mac, or Edit Preferences if you're using Windows. Once you get there, go into General. Double click to isolate. There you go. Turn it off. You won't have that problem again, assuming you don't want that problem. Let's go ahead and get out of here. Next one down, we have Locate Object. Let me show you this. Let me just click an object on the screen. You say, well, okay, I know it's in this layer probably because it lit up, and that makes sense. But, you know, I got sublayers and everything else going on. So if you say locate the object, it'll tell you exactly where it is. It locates the object for you, which makes this perfect. Locate the object complicated? No, not anymore. It makes it simple. Let's go ahead and turn that back off. Go into here. Merge selected. Flatten the artwork. Collect in new layer. You can select items and actually collect them within a new layer. Release to layers allows you literally to build new layers in sequence based on a layer you already have. In other words, if I go into flowers, and let's just go into this one here. See, these are all groups right now. If I go into this layer and tell the computer to build layers sequence, it actually creates sublayers for all of those elements. They're no longer path groups. So it changes what they are. The other option, let me undo that. The other option that you see in build layers to build creates sequences, but it also makes copies. And you can reverse the order by using that button, reverse order. Template just basically makes a layer a template, obviously, and we've already talked about that in the previous segment, so go back there if you don't understand templates. Hide others. If I come over here and select hide others, it will turn off everything but the layer I had selected, but there's a little bit of an easier way to do that. Come over, select the layer you want to stay visible, hold the Alt key down and click, and you can hide all the others. Alt click again to bring them back, so you don't really have to go here. Outline others is nice because it creates an outline of everything except what you're working on, and that's not too bad either, but there is a shortcut for that. Is you hold down the Control and the Alt key, and you click and you can outline others. Last one down is lock others. Now that means lock everything but the layer that you're working on. Again, hold down the Alt key and do the same thing, and it'll lock everything but the layer you had selected. So there are shortcuts for most everything in this program, which is nice. Last things down here, paste, remember layers. Paste, remember layers is really cool. You're in another Adobe Illustrator document. You have a layer called bicycle. And in that layer, you have a bicycle and you did an edit copy. So it's in your clipboard. You now have this image open. If you say paste remembers layers, it will actually create a layer, if it's not there, called bicycle, and put that information right in that layer for you. Panel options are options for this panel. We can change the size of those. You want to make them bigger, you can. You can turn off the thumbnails, either for the layers, top level, groups, or objects, up to you. And you can show layers only. Now, if you turn that on, watch what happens. We're back to early Illustrator, when you didn't have control of sublayers and groups, you just had the layer. I want to turn that back on because I use that. Now, one other button is this one right here. And all that does is it will select everything within that particular layer. You have several buttons down here. This button right here allows you to make or release what's called a clipping mask. Now, we're not doing one of those yet, but that's the button we're going to click. This button generates a new sub layer. We already talked about those. Of course, this makes a new layer and that deletes a layer. So that really is everything about the layers palette. Use it because it gives you control.